I'm Chimamo Mangazi with Business Time on Times. It is a magazine program where we bring you business and economic news stories making headlines. In the program today, private sector fears reduced production due to depleted foreign exchange reserves. Also in the program, Malawi-Mozambique Power Interconnector project to delay by 9 months. We have these and other stories. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome. The Malawi Confederation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry MCCCI foresee reduced production and business in the remainder of the year due to depleted foreign exchange reserves. Figures from the Reserve Bank of Malawi show that gross official reserves declined to $3 million, which was sufficient to cover 1.87 months of imports. Our reporter Justin Nkweu caught up with MCCCI President James Chimwaza. He explains.
The problem is when what we produce and sell outside is less than what we import to consume, then the cover will grow lower and lower. That is now the mindset change of all of us. When we look at Christmas as a festive season, we are thinking of importing Christmas cards that have been produced in a very sophisticated way. We are looking at importing all sorts of Christmas excitement things, which we'll bring in. But as Malawians, we can think of cards that are made from local materials, worded and projected in a different kind of way, using the skills and the special talents of Malawians, and market them effectively. We can find a huge order for those Christmas statements, Christmas gifts, Christmas messaging. The impact is indeed not good, it's bad. But I would still want to add that we are not without substitutes. If we cannot get the Forex to import cards, we've got all the tools that they use outside to make cards, invitation cards, Christmas cards. Why can't we use the technology we have and make those cards locally? And there is enough time between now and Christmas. And if we make them efficiently, then we can even export some. Of course, there are toys. Toys get popular because of the way they are marketed. And there have been times when I have found that if you go down Kwekwerere, there are toys there which just need refining, and they can be a hit all over Africa. So there's a lot that we have got to do, even as private sector, to encourage each other to think deeper than we do now. Yes, it will be a knock, but usually when you are hit, that's when you rise up to come up with alternatives from within. I agree. The private sector outside, they arise to occasions. But when they arise to occasions, it is because they are certain mechanisms that are put in place by the system. For example, there are incentives when organizations rise to occasion. Those who come up with creativity, they are rewarded. So, yes, that's when we engage with government to say we need the base that we need in order for ideas that are in private sector to be enhanced. For example, there's need for a trusted aggregator of what all the Malawians produce. Each Malawian, most of our producers are single peasant farmers, small-scale businesses. We need to come up with a mechanism that promotes a trusted aggregator where we can collect all these, and when the numbers are big, they become attractive to the external market, then we'll begin to export. I'm saying trusted aggregator because there are aggregators that are around. They'll aggregate all the agricultural produce, but we have no guarantee that when they export, all the proceeds come back. That's the other negative point. So the other point is we need to sharpen the mechanisms to ensure that what has been exported, proceeds that follow, should return here. Doesn't mean that we don't produce. We do produce, but as everything that we export, the proceeds come back. That's another area that we need to address. In short and medium term, let's quickly learn from what we've just gone through, where we are unable to import. Let's take stock of what we were not able to import. And how did we survive? What did we do to continue to survive? What we were able to do, let's now enhance it. That we should not just be for survival, but now we should also be able to sell it out.
4 South African firms have shown interest to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in fertilizer manufacturing, phone manufacturing, petroleum refining and distribution, and water transport in Malawi under the banner of the Project Innovation Center, PIC. The development follows the opening of a PIC office in South Africa last month in a quest to connect local traders to manufacturers in that country to ease trade. More in this report.
PIC South Africa Country Director Vanessa Engelbrecht says there are a lot of companies that have shown interest to explore opportunities in Malawi, with some looking for partnerships only.
No, there are surely a lot of people that came to the table, especially for partnerships as well. We are looking at cell phone and internet opportunities. We are also looking at fertilizer, agricultural opportunities. A lot of people, when we mentioned that we are going to start working hand in hand with Malawi, came to the table, clothing manufacturers, but obviously we can't do everything all at once. So we chose the most important ones or prioritized for now and see how we can do it best. We don't want to, be all over the show and not be able to implement something at least and then work from there. Okay, so Mr. Gondwani, which you know is the CEO of PIC Malawi, and I contacted one another to see if there was any business opportunities that we can explore together, helping and assisting from South Africa's side to invest into Malawi and to do some trade into Malawi. So I think the most important role, which Mr. Gondwani always mentions also, is the trust factor, and also to make things fluent, to make things flow fluently from South Africa to Malawi. There's always communication needed. There's structures to be put in place. There is a lot of business administration. And as I say, I think the most important factor, which he also mentions from his side, is the trust factor. We bring these people to the table because from our side as PIC South Africa, we trust them. And we look forward in working with them together with PIC Malawi. And well, if you speak to PIC Malawi, you speak to PIC South Africa as we work hand in hand.
One of the companies exploring opportunities in water transportation and fuel is Taikamanzi Pty Limited. Its Chief Executive Officer Shamendra Maharaj says there is an opportunity in making Malawi fuel efficient and a hub for the commodity for the nearby countries.
So right now we are talking about the petroleum industry. That's what we'll be investing in helping Malawi becoming more fuel efficient for its own citizens, and also making it a hub for other African countries that surround it, so that we are able to use Malawi as a hub to service the other countries when they are facing difficulties, which they are currently. So obviously, this is a two-step process. The first one will be bringing refined product because that will be the easiest thing to do right now in terms of helping Malawi progress. But the long-term goal is to, or not long-term, the medium to long-term goal is to definitely for oil exploration and refining. The reason for that is it will definitely help in terms of creating job opportunities and also increasing the gross domestic product of Malawi. And it'll create thousands of jobs directly, indirectly, and also increase the standards of living of the Malawian citizens. Look, right now we are working on two projects currently, on two proposals. Once it's accepted, we'll be able to give a dollar figure to it. But obviously, there's something that's creating thousands of jobs directly and indirectly. The investment's going to be pretty large. Currently, what we're doing is we're working on two proposals or two or three proposals for PIC Malawi and the government. Once they are accepted, we'll be able to implement them, implement the planning and the strategies. For me to give you a dollar figure today is pretty difficult because we're still in the planning stages for those proposals. But what I can tell you is that our aim is to empower the Malawian citizens. We're looking at almost 80 to 90% workforce from Malawi. The idea is to make Malawi the next Dubai of Africa. You know.
South Africa is one of Malawi's investment and trade partners. Figures from the International Trade Center's trade map show that Malawi exported goods worth $48.6 million to that country in 2020.
This is Business Time on Times. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. The Malawi-Mozambique Power Interconnector project is expected to delay by 9 months. This was revealed during a press briefing by the Electricity Supply Corporation of Malawi in Blantyre. Eskom's senior projects manager, Alexander Kaitane, attributes the delay to the COVID pandemic. Justin Kweu has more in this report.
Once completed, the interconnector is projected to add about 50 megawatts to the national power grid. Addressing journalists, Eskom's senior projects manager Alexander Kaitane said the COVID pandemic made it difficult for teams between Mozambique and Malawi to meet and discuss progress of the project. Kaitane was, however, optimistic that the revised deadline will be met as entities from the two countries have devised ways of proceeding with the work amid effects of the pandemic.
Currently, with the MoMA project, we have just awarded the key contracts, being the construction contracts for the transmission line and for the substation at Matambo. These have just been awarded in the past month. So the contractors are now busy mobilizing themselves, moving into design phase, and then we shall proceed with the rest of the project. The reason for the delays are mostly attributed to the oncoming of the COVID, which came as we were already doing some preparatory works for the project, and that affected our work and organization. Just to mention, this project is being jointly managed or implemented by a team comprising officers from EDM in Mozambique and Eskom in Malawi. So we have a joint project implementation unit. So before the pandemic, we used to meet, discuss, resolve technical issues, come up with documentation and so on. But when the COVID came, that became a bit of a problem. So we had to shift to online platforms, and at the very first beginning it was a difficult thing. But along the way we managed to find a solution, and that's why now we are where we are. So there is that delay because of the COVID. Yeah, firstly, as I've said, by now I think we have mastered the art of working online wherever required. That's one. But then secondly, we are also impressing upon our contractors and consultants to make sure that wherever possible, they should maximize utilization of local workforce so as to reduce on their requirement or their presence, assuming they have been hit by COVID and they are not able to mobilize into the country. So we are exploring several ways, but at the moment, we are confident that we will make it.
The project is worth $35 million and is being funded by World Bank, European Union, and the government of Malawi through ESCOM. Once completed, it is expected to transfer to Malawi 50 megawatts from Matambo substation in Mozambique to Pombeya substation, and with a capacity to transfer more from other countries connected to Mozambique. ESCOM says currently they have awarded the key contracts for construction for the transmission line and for the substation at Matambo to contractors who have moved into the design phase. Energy expert from the Mzuzu University, Maxson Chitao, commended the two countries for the project, rating it as the right path towards addressing energy issues in the country. Chitao, however, said the country should work on its capacity so that it is not entirely dependent on transmitted power, but also able to store some. He said, for example, if there can be an outage in Mozambique for some reasons, it means the country, Malawi, will also not have power immediately because the country does not have the capacity to reserve excess power. Therefore, the country needs to work on this. The private sector has been listing energy as one of top challenges that it meets in the country, which also scares away investors. The Malawi-Mozambique Power Interconnector is also in line with the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 and the Malawi 2063 Blueprint.
Cannabis industry authorities have attributed low uptake in production of industrial hemp in the country to its exorbitant cost. It has transpired that out of 69 licenses issued, only 4 have started production. Last year, Parliament approved cultivation and processing of cannabis for medicinal and industrial use. Yamikan Kachaje reports.
The authority says among other reasons for the slow movement is the expensive nature of the cannabis business. They indicated that businesses and cooperatives are still setting up facilities and processes necessary for cannabis production. Speaking in an interview, Cannabis Regulatory Authority Director General Ketulo Salipira says he is hopeful that many of the license holders will start production shortly.
Over the 69, about 4 have started work on the ground. These are Njinji Cannabis Cooperative, and we have Invegro Limited. Another one is Women of Vision, and the last one is the CPG Investments. I wouldn't say there are problems as such, but what we should understand is that cannabis is an expensive business in terms of setting up the facilities and what have you. So after giving the licenses, the first batch in April, I believe many companies and the cooperatives are still preparing, trying to level the ground so that when all is done, then they can begin the production. And in addition, especially for the cooperatives that are going to engage into industrial cannabis production, these ones, most of them are waiting for the rainy season because they may not afford, to put up structures for irrigation. So we believe as the rainy season begins, then we should have a surge in the numbers that are going to begin the production. If well managed, I believe cannabis should be able to complement, tobacco, because the outlook out there internationally, there's a very good market potential. So we believe if we are well organized and that the quality of our produce is very good, then we should be able to compete, at the international scale. And if that is done, then the revenues should be a bit higher, maybe than what we are getting, maybe from tobacco currently.
One of the firms that has started cultivating the crop is Invergrow Limited. One of its directors, Nebert Nyenda, weighs in his views.
It's a nascent industry. It's all starting up. It's a new crop. Not necessarily the knowledge about growing it, but understanding the crop, its dynamics, the markets, the international registration, the standards, and the rest of it that makes a viable value chain to work. So it's a new crop. So in the process, everybody will learn a few mistakes. Some will stay aloof because they want to watch and see that it succeeds and then join in. Others want to join in early, who want to take a risk and reap the early on rewards. So it's an industry that has generated a lot of excitement as of now. You can see the number of licenses or the number of enterprises that have been issued with licenses. It shows that there's a lot of enthusiasm, but the motive for joining might be different. If you look at the producer groups, it's like others are looking at it as a savior crop, having been frustrated with the margins and profitability of other crops that have been grown before. Others are going into it as a strategic, like ourselves. We are not going into it because we want to make quick bucks. We are going into it because we believe it's a value chain that can anchor future growth and economic development of the country because of the multitude uses that the plant can be used for. On the face of it, I think it would do much more than tobacco, because you can see that the whole of the plant has got uses. So I'm not just looking at our company as Invergrow Limited, I'm looking at Malawi and the sort of enterprising culture that is there in Malawi. We should be able to make it so that others can come into the other value chains. So the issue of cultivation is just one element of it. The issue of farming is just one element of the crop, but there are many other opportunities within the value chain that are important in order to make this industry strong and grow and create jobs that are much sought for at the moment.
Earlier this year, President Lazarus Chakwera warned that the country's leading foreign exchange earner, tobacco, was weakening and urged stakeholders to switch to high-growth crops like cannabis. According to a World Bank report, Malawian cannabis, particularly the strain called Malawi Gold, is among the best and finest marijuana strains in the world.
Well, with that story, we've come to the end of today's edition of Business Time here on Times. It is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Chimwemwe Mangazi. But always remember, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. Bye for now.